It looks like Penelope is the one who tried to take out Gary. Welcome to C2, where I review my favorite shows, podcasts, posts, and everything else I see that needs to be talked about. I hope everyone had a happy holiday. Well, this week we are back on the case. Today we are going to recap Tyler Perry's Sistas to figure out who tried to take Gary out. There was a lot revealed in episodes 7 and 8, so let's get into it. First, let's break down season 8, episode 7 of Sistas, titled Game Recognized Game. Robin questions Fatima. So we find out that Robin knows everything that went down between Fatima and Gary. He even knows about Gary owing Zach money, since he subpoenaed Gary's financial records. But where did he get the pics of Fatima being pushed by Gary's bodyguard? I mean, Robin could have gotten the footage from a nearby surveillance camera, or was Gary being followed by someone other than Jordan? We know that the FBI were closing in on Gary. We also know that Robin keeps talking about his connect within the FBI. Did this connect give the evidence to Robin instead of Agent Watt? Or did Robin act alone to get the evidence? But did Agent Watt know about the gun? Did he question Fatima about it? Or did Robin get his hands on it first? We found out that Robin was only pump faking as he agreed to not drop a dime on Fatima as long as she played nice with Hayden. Agent Watts shows up at Andy's, still accusing her of trying to take out Gary. He reveals that there was a second attempt on Gary's life. Andy is shocked to the point that she started to wonder if Gary is still with us. But Agent Watt quickly ended the suspense this time and tells her that Gary is still alive. Then he flipped out on Andy, going from room temperature to hot. He grabs her and starts dragging her. Poor Andy, she's been slapped and now dragged. She can't catch a break. Thankfully, Robin shows up just in time to shut Agent Watt all the way down, like removing an Energizer battery from his back. He lets Agent Watt know yet again that he has the connect that can end his career. Then we have Andy in her tired damsel routine running to Robin's arms. They almost shared a kiss, but Andy came to her senses. Finally, Rich and Sabrina make up. Rich admitted that he is nervous about the whole donor situation. Sabrina agrees to go with him for support. And support she does give. Rich was in that place acting like he was going into major surgery. He got jokes. Moving on to the next scene, since this one got a little too messy. Ew. Karen confides in Mrs. Lisa. Pam and Karen fills Miss Lisa in on what was going on with Mrs. Marie. Then Karen has a private conversation with Mrs. Lisa about being questioned by the FBI. Here we got clues about what happened when the girls left Andy. You know, after they couldn't convince Andy not to marry Gary, Karen admitted that they went looking for Gary. The question is, did they find him and was he alive? While I don't think Karen or the girls did it, it appears that this is affecting Karen a little more than the other ladies, but we find out that Karen is feeling some type of way about how she was judged for having 2 babies and 2 different baby daddies. Ms. Lisa told her she has nothing to be embarrassed about. She brought up the double standard, which we'll get to a little later. Hudson at the hospital. Hudson finds out that Gary was injected with street drugs. The injection was supposedly lethal. Hudson does seem shocked. Given his reaction, I find it less likely he did it. But it doesn't explain why he was so eager to let Andy in the room after stopping her from entering just moments earlier. Weird. Right. But at the end of the episode, Gary is awoke and he is asking for Andy. Danny and Tony make up, back at work, at the airport. Danny and Tony finally made up. Danny broke down the triple D, don't decide for Danny, and Tony finally got it. They made up right in front of an audience of airport staff. Apparently, the airport doesn't have a problem with workplace romance. After her meeting with Robin, Fatima returns home to Zach, who is out like a light. Zach awakes and questions why Fatima is home so early. She brushes it off. Zach tells her the good news about Michael. He also tells her Michael is on a play date. Fatima tells Zach that Michael and his friend Josiah have a lot in common. He has 2 moms and Karen has 2 baby daddies. which is a weird stretch since Karen isn't Michael's mom. If anything, Michael has two moms, one being his biological and Mama Fatima. Talk about a double standard. Really, Fatima, you are my girl, but you get a little delusional when it comes to Zach. It's crazy because if Zach could get pregnant, he would be knocked up with a baby from her and Karen. But she would be okay with that because she's all about my man, my man, my man. The girls meet up at Andy's, so Andy texts the girls and they met up at her place. When they arrived, Andy told them what happened, how Robin saved her from Agent Watt and how she almost kissed him. The girls were interested in knowing more about what was going on with Andy and Robin when she got a call from Gary. Yes. Gary wakes up, and the first person he wants to talk to is Andy. And that was pretty much what happened in episode 7. Now let's break down episode 8. Danny is in therapy, where she belongs. Krisha is the MVP this season for helping Danny choose a non-violent response versus throwing hands. But let's see if she can help her have a rational convo versus cursing out her man in front of friends and strangers. Danny is going to need more tools, Krisha. I'm just saying. Penelope at the hospital. So Penelope shows up at the hospital. She introduces herself as Gary's fiance. I guess Gary's got 9 lives and 2 fiancés. Hudson realizes that Penelope has way more venom than Andy. He seems very thrown off, maybe even shocked about the real Penelope. After finding out that Gary is very much alive, Penelope doesn't seem happy at all. She leaves the hospital, or at least that's what we thought. Karen and Sabrina meet at Fuel, so Karen meets with Sabrina to help with a marketing plan for Roots to Riches. Karen notices that Sabrina and Rich have made up. She hits Sabrina with that, "You have a good man, Savannah." Look, Karen, Sabrina just wants that deposit, and we ain't talking about in a bank account. Okay, they catch up with what's going on with Karen. Sabrina asked about Karen's love life. And I'm like, really, Sabrina? I agree with Karen when she said that she doesn't have time for that right now. She already have 2 baby daddies. Like Karen said, she is getting all the love she needs right now from her babies, mama and her girls. I'm just happy that her, Zach, and Fatima are finally moving on and preparing to co-parent. Andy at the hospital. Andy finally shows up at the hospital the next day after finding out that Gary is awake. Of course, Hudson is pissed with Andy. She tried to tell him that she came to the hospital that night, but visiting hours were over. So as usual, Andy and Hudson go back and forth about Gary. But when Hudson crosses the line, Andy gives him a Stephanie Forrester slap. It's too bad Penelope wasn't there to see that slap. Yes, Penelope, Andy can slap too. She was just holding back with you. But Penelope did walk in when Andy was letting Hudson know that Gary is my man, my man, my man, with half of her chest. So Penelope, who is not shocked, because she believed that Andy and Gary were playing her and her brother the entire time, told Andy to say it again with her whole chest. Look, Hudson didn't want any part of this fight, so he leaves. Andy tries to tell Penelope it's all an act, but at this point, Penelope just ain't trying to hear it. Then Andy tells Penelope she is there to see Gary because he asked. You can tell this cut Penelope deep, like she did Gary, allegedly. To make it worse, Hudson comes back and tells Andy that Gary is asking for her. Penelope just took her Bottega Veneta dupe for the Jody bag and left. So Andy goes in to see Gary, just when Gary is ready to tell Andy something. Penelope barges in. That's when we find out that Gary doesn't seem to know who Penelope is, but she decides to test Gary to see if he is lying by slapping his memory back. I guess Gary isn't scamming this time. He really doesn't remember Penelope. How convenient for Penelope. I guess security is busy eating while all of this is going on. So Hudson had to drag Penelope out of Gary's room. Back at Zach and Fatima's, Fatima tells Zach the news. You know how Robin is blackmailing her into babysitting Hayden. And Zach's response is, we going to jail. Okay, why would they be going to jail if they didn't try to unalive Gary? I'm guessing that they were going to take Gary out, but someone else got to him first. Either way, they know that the evidence makes them look guilty. Way to go, Sherlock homegirl. And what son? But they have a plan to clear their name and Andy's by serving Hayden up on a platter. I know why Hayden is a suspect, but why do they think Hayden is a suspect? It's not like they know that Gary had a thing with Tamara, but I bet Fatima is going to find out now that she has motivation to get Robin off her back. Did you hear Zach bring up Penelope as a potential suspect? Okay, Zach. So now Zach is going to be following Hayden, and Fatima will be following Penelope. This is getting interesting. Maurice and Paige. So we have Paige being more like a Karen in this episode. She has the audacity to clock what time Sabrina shows up to work. Really, Paige? She insinuates that Sabrina is late. Had the nerve to quote an opinion. If you are not early, then you are late. Really? Your Mima probably should have told you that it is inappropriate to question what time your boss shows up to work, especially when she is actually on time. Read the employee handbook or manual. Your Mima's opinion is not in it. I'm like, wait a minute. Paige, why do you have time to notice when Sabrina shows up to work? Don't you have work to do? Why are you showing up to work early just to do nothing but wait to see when Sabrina shows up? Then, with her permission to speak freely, Paige had the nerve to accuse Sabrina of getting her job because of DEI. The problem is that apparently she doesn't even know Sabrina's qualifications. That's so disgusting. Paige, at least you could have compared your resumes before making the accusation. But Sabrina didn't disappoint with her response. This is why she is my favorite character on this show, because she knows how to respond to ignorance with class. This entire scene was just too real to those who have to deal with a real life Paige. But leave it to Maurice to bring humor to every situation as he handed Paige her face off the floor. Now let's turn the page. Next, Karen at the salon. Karen walks in on Pam advising a client against a style that doesn't fit an apple head. Then up walks an Aaron. Fatima meets Andy at her penthouse. She finally gives Andy the tea on what's going on at the firm. Penelope and Jordan in the hospital parking lot. Jordan gets into the car with Penelope. He questioned Penelope's motive for showing up at the hospital. Jordan asked Penelope if she was there to finish the job. Wait, so Jordan is convinced that Penelope did it. Penelope conveniently doesn't remember what happened, but Jordan does remember Penelope showing up with blood all over her hands. Okay, so both Gary and Penelope are experiencing memory loss. Penelope, who's playing games here, you were slapping Gary because he can't remember. Before that, you were slapping Andy and accusing her of pointing the FBI in Jordan's direction. But it looks like you have the biggest motive and you had Gary's blood on your hands. Literally. Suspense and theories. Now we know that Robin is just using what he knows about Fatima to force her to keep Hayden distracted. If he has pictures of her before the attempt on Gary, then what other information does he have and on who? He has a connect within the FBI. He got his hands on evidence confiscated from Gary's bodyguard. Was Robin in on the FBI investigation into Gary? There seems to be two investigations going on because Agent Watt doesn't seem to be privy to all of this information. Or is it that Agent Watt is so fixated on Andy, he isn't looking into other suspects? Like Robin said to Fatima, he only needs motive, means, and opportunity. So if we use that logic, we have Jordan. His motive at the time of the first attempt is Andy and what Gary did to his sister. As for the means, he could have had access to a knife. We know he had the opportunity since he found the location of the wedding because he was following Gary. Then we have Penelope. She had the biggest motive, and now we know she had the means as well as the opportunity. Apparently, she left FBI custody, but how did she know where to find Gary? She didn't seem to even know that Andy and Gary were planning to get married until recently. But something tells me that Penelope didn't do it. I think that she found Gary already bleeding out and got his blood on her. Look, you all be going hard in the comments. If you keep that up, you will solve the case before the show writers, especially at DD Harper 3057, who reminded me that Hayden was the one who put pharmaceuticals or hired someone to put it in the back of the chain breaker's truck that Zach was driving in season 2. So we know that Hayden has motive since Gary was sleeping with his wife. You remember when he was on the phone crying his eyes out. And I'm sure that Hayden could get his hands on a knife We also know that Hayden contacted Gary for a meetup. And last but not least, we are reminded that Hayden could get his hands on pharmaceuticals like he did in the past. While Hayden was at the office, he could have gotten someone else to sneak into Gary's room to inject his IV. Maybe Tamara, since we haven't seen her in a while, we don't know what she has been up to. I still think that Jasmine could be a suspect as well. She has several motives from the past, and who knows what Gary has done since then. She is definitely crazy enough to try and take him out. She couldn't stand the fact that Andy and Gary were dating, so what would she do if she found out they were getting married? Just like she found Andy's apartment back then, she could follow Gary and confront him, giving him one to the chest and slip out before anyone saw her. I no longer think Hudson is a suspect. He doesn't have a motive to take out Gary that we know of. The only thing I think he is guilty of is being jealous of Andy. Then we have Fatima, who has eliminated herself from the suspect list, in my opinion. How? Like she said, if she did it, Gary would be in the morgue, not the hospital. So the suspect is someone who is either an amateur or someone who only wanted to frame someone else for the attempts on Gary's life. Like Penelope said, Andy and Gary will get what they deserve, and it is already in motion. I guess we will find out in the next episode, since Gary has something to tell Andy. But it seems that Gary doesn't remember Penelope, so what else has he forgot? Could it be he doesn't have a clue who put him in the hospital? Favorite scenes. What was your favorite scene in episode 7? For me, it was Rich and Sabrina at the clinic. Rich was acting like he was going in for open heart surgery, telling Sabrina that if he don't make it, it was always you. Hilarious. Rich was being so extra in this scene. My favorite scene in episode 8 was when Penelope kept popping up. First, it was when she overheard Andy telling Hudson Gary was her man. Then it was when Gary was about to reveal something to Andy and she walked into his hospital room. I don't know about you all, but I got tired of Penelope just popping up. I mean, I liked her little satin fit and all, but it's like I got a little tired of seeing it because of all of the pop-ups. If you are interested in the look Penelope wore in this episode, I put a link in the description. It's on sale at Saks. But anyway, Penelope got hers at the end when Jordan popped up on her. Like she said, he almost gave her a heart attack. But no Penelope. Gary surviving 2 attempts on his life. Then he woke up and the first person he wanted to see was Andy. That's what almost gave you a heart attack. Predictions. So what's next? Well, it looks like Gary is up and he has something to tell Andy. Did Gary suffer a memory loss? It appears that he doesn't even remember Hudson. It also looks like Tamara is back and she shows up at the hospital to find out that Gary has suffered memory loss. We also see Hayden discussing what happened between Gary and Tamara with an acquaintance. Could this be his supplier? Looks like we are getting another appearance from Aaron in the next episode. Maybe it's just me, but there is something very off about Aaron. It looks like he is interested in being more involved in roots to riches. If he is an accountant, that might be a good thing. But I don't know about that guy and those Serial K shirts he wears. I'm just saying. So that's the recap of Tyler Perry's Sistas. What do you think Gary wants to tell Andy? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this recap, give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe and click the notification bell as I will be releasing videos recapping each episode this season. As always, thanks for watching.